One of the strongest references Minority Report makes is to the act of seeing, and the figure of the eye is so important. There's a really long sequence at the beginning of the film in which Anderton manipulates these holographic computer screens to see into the scene of a future murder as it unfolds. And this ability to see is connected with the investigation, problem solving, and being able to manipulate future events. And as with all of the characters, something really important to notice is that the ability to see is directly linked with the mandatory requirement to be seen at all times. So as Anderton and all the characters move through the city, cameras tag their eyes for security purposes. So it could have been that they have ID tags that are scanned as they walk around the world, but because the movie is so much about vision, they use the eyes. And advertisers use the eyes of the citizens to semi-customize their presentations for individual people. So the advertisements will talk to you by name because they've read your ID signals through your eyes, and they can address you personally. And so what ends up happening is that because the eyes are so central to identification, Anderton replaces his eyes. So this is another relationship here to Oedipus. Oedipus's eyes are also damaged. However, whereas Oedipus gouges out his own eyes to punish himself, Anderton has to remove his eyes to prevent the city systems from tracking his location. But he keeps his eyes in a baggie and then later uses them to gain entry to the pre-crime headquarters as he attempts to prove his innocence and solve a crime from the past. It's all part of his journey, and it's just interesting how the eyes show up here. But what I want you to notice is that how we go through stages of fear, starting with the impending fear of what it will be like to exchange his eyes and what that will mean for him and his identity. So we have some inner form conflicts here, such as the relationship between your personal psychology and your physical body. So let's look at some of the other conflicts that go on. So we've got vision and the ability to see, and how that's deeply tied to how we think about the future and also how we think about truth. And there are some interesting things that happen, really, when you think about visuality in English and with the concept of sight. So one of the things you want to pay attention to, particularly when we think about reason versus passion, and reason always being connected with the truth, is I see what you mean. Can you see what I'm saying? These are visual metaphors. I have a perspective. Perspective is something that involves visuality. I have a brilliant idea. Brilliant is a way of describing a quality of light, a brightness of light. Don't look at the world through rose-colored glasses. You know, these are all associations of sight and imagery with knowledge, and with the ability of knowledge to guide reason. And that comes in conflict with passion. And there's definitely passion going on in Minority Report, because Anderton is out for revenge in that movie, and that passion blinds his ability to see the truth. And so this is very, very interesting. The figure of justice, as we know, wears a blindfold. Her eyes are covered, and then she has to balance the scales of justice by feel. And the value of having the blindfold removed really helps us see the light of truth before our eyes. Now, in terms of other outer form and inner form characteristics, Minority Report is just a goldmine. I mean, it looks like it takes place in the future. Futuristic cars drive on vertical roads. The minds of the precogs link directly to computers, and there's all kinds of imagery of how that works. There's the police officers who use jetpacks to chase criminals. And when it comes to inner form, there's one particular line that's very interesting, and that line is, everybody runs. This is a very key line in the movie, and it doesn't come as a surprise either, because pre-crime is a program that arrests people on the basis of crimes they haven't committed yet. And their passion for freedom overrides the seemingly reasonable assumption that pre-crime is a flawless program. The suspects were about to be guilty, so the law is justified in treating them as guilty at the time of arrest based on the logic of reason represented in the story. However, innocence comes into conflict with experience when Anderton learns what it's like to be accused of a crime he hasn't had a chance to commit yet. So even though the reason would suggest, hey, this is the way precog works, you're about to commit a crime, so justice says that you have to be arrested. But his passion is, wait a second, I haven't done this, and his whole body is also involved in this because he just wants to run. Like, he just has to do the flight or fight sort of thing. And it's just an amazing array of bringing all these conflicts together. Now, the movie's really patterned on the Oedipus myth and the short story, of course. and it belongs to the science fiction genre, but it's more. It transcends this, and it's because that it makes a very, very strong mixture of reason versus passion, and innocence versus experience, and body versus soul. So here's an interesting homework exercise for you. Once you've watched Minority Report and thought it through, think about how you could tell a similar story using those same inner form elements that we've talked about, and as you defined for yourself, with the outer form elements of a Western. In other words, how could you transport that story so that it took place in the world of a Western with all the visual trappings of a Western? And as you complete this assignment, be sure to jot down the plot elements of dilemma, crisis, decision, and action, and resolution. They're all expertly woven into the story, and it's a great creative and critical thinking exercise to find and define them. And when you're done, take the time to post them in our group so that you can interact with other movie fans and aficionados and help grow this discussion of genre and its meaning.